All right. Thank you all for joining. This is our webinar on informed decisions, integrating science and design for effective outcomes, sponsored by Clarity Metrics Group, presented by myself, Samantha Carter. About our company, we are a decision design consulting group specializing in providing strategic decision consulting services to help forward-thinking organizations improve their culture and strengthen their value positioning within their respective industries. Clarity Metrics Group stands out from other strategic and decision design consulting firms because we believe in transforming the culture before implementing new designs. Our experience is based on decision science, so we are design thinking, which is 360 degree, and interdisciplinary, including the study of psychology and how our psychology affects our decisions. And we also believe that there is a prerequisite mindset which is needed to make decisions, so we always start there. I am the CEO and founder of Clarity Metrics Group. I am a decision scientist. I hold an executive juris doctor from Purdue University, an MBA from University of Phoenix, and a certificate in applied business and data analytics from Arizona State University. Accompanying that are a number of certifications, such as I am Green Belt for Lean Six Sigma, Scrum Master, Lean Champion, and Design for Six Sigma certified. That's a little bit about me, your presenter. And now I want to talk about our flagship services that we have at Clarity Metrics Group. So our decision design will evaluate your specific challenges and opportunities, then assist you in developing a structured approach to simplifying your decision-making process. We use our Shift, Promote, Design approach, which was created by Clarity Metrics Group, but focuses on your cognitive factor of decision-making. Then we focus on the emotional and social factors before we begin to architect the design. A design is only as good as your buy-in, so we can't overlook these pieces and make sure we have the buy-in for a better or more successful implementation. For our strategic design, we have 4 steps. 1, we evaluate your organization, and then we do an analysis, and we have a collaboration where we work together to create the opportunities that we need for our design. One thing to note that Clarity Metrics always puts design at the end. We need a thorough understanding of your organization's current state before we can do any type of designing. Additionally, in our strategic design, we use our HOPE, which is another Clarity Metrics creation. It is the Harmonious Operational Pathway Effectiveness framework, which is to improve your continuous improvement framework within your design. Finally, our last Clarity Metric group original is their decision readiness appraisal, which evaluates your business's current capabilities in making informed decisions. And at the end of that appraisal, we will let you know where your company stands and recommend steps on moving forward. We are proud to introduce our Clarity Academy, which is roadmap to open registration for our first group of students in the fall of 2025 for our Agile Evolution Method certification program, which is a 7-step method for successful collaboration. And at the end of this webinar, we will place a link in the chat, or I will place a link in the chat to allow you to an opportunity to participate in our beta group, which is a free way to go through our program and get Agile Evolution Method practitioner certified in our beta group, which is going to come out in the summer, as long as you provide some feedback on anything we can improve for our fall launch. So I will put that link in the chat. All right, so today we will cover decision behavior theory, which is the psychological study of decisions. Why and how we at Clarity Metrics Group integrate design thinking and systems thinking to make decision and strategic designs. And finally, how to leverage data analysis. These are 3 functional groups that work together, together to create a decision design that will drive information to decision makers to make better decisions. So how do people make decisions? One thing I want to note is making decisions is the most important thing that we do as decision makers. We have to make mission critical decisions or critical to mission decisions all the time. Excuse me. And it's important to understand how we make decisions. It's important to understand how our brain works because we want to make decisions, we want to make designs that don't go against the pattern of our natural brain activity. So it's good to learn more about this topic. So first is how we, in the three factors of making decisions is the cognitively. We make decisions cognitively, which means we're either going to use our reason or it's going to be unreasoned. The second is emotionally. Our emotional attachments to people, places, things, or pretty much our previous life experiences. Finally, socially. They could be a cultural or religious imprints that influence our decisions. And we'll go through all of these one by one. So let's start with heuristics. So I want to talk about heuristics just a little bit. Sometimes we make decisions using mental shortcuts, or what we call in our field heuristics. And they often deviate from rational logical reasoning, which is the way that people make decisions. Historically, we thought people make logical decisions, but traditional decision-making theory is obsolete. We now know that people do not make any rational, logical decisions. We may go from A to C, skip over B, start at C, then introduce D. I mean, we are all over the place. So it is a good thing to understand and how you and I think about decisions, how our brain processes decisions, so that we can be more self-aware. So when we're looking at these heuristics, we're faced with like these complex decisions, and our brain may use some what I like to call fuzzy matches or mental frameworks to make quick judgments and drawing on our past experiences and our long-term memory to make these like quick decisions. And this can lead to errors. And we have to be self-aware to avoid these errors. I like to think of heuristics as a desktop shortcut. So our brain, I always believe, is a highly efficient, complex computer. And sometimes when we have our computers, we have our apps, we have things that we're downloading. In our case, it'd be like memories and things of that nature. And sometimes we are transacting these same spaces over and over, and we create this shortcut on our desktop to get to the app. But sometimes we can't use the shortcut because it's corrupted or something to that extent. We need to go the long way around. We need to go through the start menu, pick the app, etc. And that is what we have to do when we want to avoid making these mental shortcuts. We have to go the long way around so that we know for certain that our decisions that we're making are sound, rational, logical to an extent decisions. So the only heuristics that we'll have time to talk about today is the availability heuristic. There are other heuristics such as the representation heuristic, as well as what I like to call the Bayesian adjustment heuristic. So these are more heuristics. There's more information out there. I encourage you to follow our Clarity Perspective, which is a blog that we always deep dive into a number of brain patterns and decision science and behavioral theory. We dive into those things in I think, an easy way to understand a complex situation. So availability heuristics. The availability heuristic is a cognitive bias that occurs when people overestimate the importance or likelihood of information that is readily available in their memory, rather than seeking out more representative sample of information. So I look at this stack of papers that this young lady has. Now her hand is on the first stack because that's the most available stack, but there are more stacks that we're not even touching. But the availability heuristic is just that, is looking at what is within our reach, that first memory, that first thing. So let's do an example. Let's meet Sarah. So Sarah is afraid of flying after hearing about a recent plane crash. She overestimates the risk of flying and avoids it, even though the actual risk is extremely low. So in Sarah's case, her memory is dominated by this vivid recent plane crash, which makes her overestimate the risk of flying. So let's take it piece by piece. We're looking at this area here. So vividness, right? this plane crash is a vivid, memorable event. It's making it more likely for this event to be stored in her memory. Since it's vivid, it really has a more emphasis to influence her perception of the risk. The recency, it's a recent event. It's something that just happened. So it's more at the front of her mind when she's making these decisions about flying. And so because of the vividness and the recency, it begins to overestimate the risk of flying, even though there are hundreds or thousands of planes in the air that land just fine. The fact that this new event just happened makes her believe out of those hundreds or thousands of planes in the air, most of them are gonna, crash. But that's not the truth, right? We're overestimating the risk now based on our conversation. And again, because of all of that, we begin to avoid, right? We're avoiding taking any kind of risk, which would, our case would be traveling by plane. This is something that we actually, this availability heuristics happens all the time. Have you ever heard yourself say, I just had that conversation with someone, or I just read about this? And you may have just read about it, but that probably wasn't the first time you heard about it. So instead of going back into our mental vault and seeing all of the instances we had that discussion or we talked about that topic and gathering all that information, then coming forward with maybe a logical stance on whatever the topic or the issue is, we just had that conversation and what you just read, and what you just talked about. So that's because that is the most available information you have, but it's not the only information you have, right? So that's how we kind of day to day can take a look at how are we being impacted or influenced by availability heuristics. All right, so next we're going to talk about biases. So biases are thinking, perception, or behavior that is influenced by emotional, social, and environmental factors. Biases are often learned through life experiences, but they can also be shaped by various cultural, educational, and social influences. Biases are a part of our unconscious mind. This is important to understand. It's not something that we consciously are asking our mind to do. This is our unconscious mind, meaning without reason. So there's no reasoning to it, in that these biases also affect our decisions. So we're going to talk about today the confirmation bias. So the confirmation bias is giving undue weight to information that confirms our preconceived notion and ignores information that contradicts it. So we don't carry anything about any kind of information that goes against what we believe to be the truth. So let's meet John. So John is a doctor. He's treating a patient with a rare disease. John has a preconceived notion that the patient's symptoms are caused by a specific condition. So he only considers information that confirms his hypothesis and ignores contradictory evidence, thus resulting in a misdiagnosis. We absolutely do not want our doctors to have confirmation bias. So let's break it down and why this becomes a confirmation bias. So selective information gathering. He only considers information that confirms his hypothesis, right? And he ignores anything that is contradictory to it. He reads about things, but interprets them in a frame that only encourages his point of view rather than considering the other alternatives. So, for example, he attributes discrepancies in external factors such as the lab not conforming to his preconceived notion as a lab error or a faulty test, rather than considering the alternative, which is you are wrong. He has the tunnel vision. He's focusing specifically on just that one thing. Again, we're in the tunnel and everything outside of the tunnel makes no sense. It has no influence on our decision. And because he's doing this selective information and he's interpreting information according to what he believes is right, and he has this tunnel vision, he becomes more and more self-assured that this is the right path to go forward. And again, now we have a misdiagnosis. So how many times have we done confirmation biases? Like this can be when we're interacting with our friends, our family, or even at work. I've seen this happen where you're in a group setting maybe, and there's you're the leader of the group is saying like, this is the way we want to move forward, and you're presenting all these reasons why moving forward is not the best, not the best conclusion we need to run to, but the leader doesn't care about what you're saying, they move forward anyway. That leader has a confirmation bias, and understand that it is unconscious. Okay, it is not something they are consciously doing. This is an unconscious thing that we do, and we have to be self-aware. We have to be understanding like this. This is not okay. I need to seek diverse perspectives, and we'll go over, some ways to combat confirmation biases and heuristics in a bit. First, let's talk about a case study. So we have Blockbuster. I don't know, I'm dating myself, but Blockbuster used to be a very great experience where you go in, you buy some DVDs, you rent some DVDs, or you could buy some DVDs, but then you return them to the brick and mortar store at the time that the return is due. And so what happened to the downfall of Blockbuster was because they ignored Netflix as a competitor. And why? We're gonna assume it's a possibility at least that the availability heuristic is at play here. So this bias occurs when people overestimate the importance and likelihood of information that's readily available to them, right? So in this case, the success of Netflix was not readily available. It was still emerging in this, actually creating a new market. And so we didn't know how it was going to do just yet. So they may have overestimated the importance of Blockbuster's brick and mortar stores and underestimated the appeal of online DVD services. And that's led to their downfall. So again, this is heuristics in play. These things really do happen. So here's our second factor, emotions. So emotions are crucial components of decision behavioral theory. Research has shown that emotions can influence decision making in several ways. For example, positive emotions like excitement and enthusiasm can increase our perceived value, right, of an option, making it more likely to be chosen. On the other hand, negative emotions like anxiety, fear, etc., can decrease our perceived value of an option, leading to avoidance or delay. So here's an example of a consumer purchasing a new smartphone. If the consumer is excited about the new features and the design of the phone, we have positive emotions. They are more likely to make a purchase. On the other hand, if the consumer is anxious about the cost or worried about the phone's durability, those are negative emotions, which may cause a delay in avoiding making a decision. So it's important to understand how your customer journey is. So if you have a customer journey and you identify pain points in your customer journey, such as cost or durability, it behooves you before you go into production to deal with those issues if you want a successful launch. So it's very important to understand how emotions play, especially negative emotions, impact our decisions and can impact our success in our company. Socially, the rise of the gig economy. So I am also a part of this gig economy where I want to be my own boss, and people are changing their views on work. It's not common anymore. It's not uncommon anymore for us to hear someone say, I'm not tied down to a 9 to 5, or I'm increasing my wealth, not someone else's wealth, or, I'm my own boss. So this shift towards freelance work is not just really a personal choice. It's a reflection of societal influences. It's how the workforce is treating people, and this forcing them maybe to move into this whole I'm my own boss, this gig economy. So let's look at it. We're going to look down here at our social norms, right? So our social norms, the rise of the gig economy is partly due to changing social norms around work and career. With the increasing popularity of social media, we see these influencers, etc. They're creating a cultural narrative that emphasizes flexibility and autonomy. So look at our picture here. We have this young lady who's let's assume a freelancer, and she's working on a beach, and she posts this to social media. Who doesn't want to be working on a beach? I know I'd rather be working on the beach, right? So then we also have cultural values also play a role in shaping our attitudes towards work. In many Western cultures, there is a strong emphasis towards individualism and self-reliance, which can lead to people, I think, prioritizing freedom over flexibility. So the traditional employment situation is no longer appealing. Again, when we have media and advertising, so these industries like Airbnb, Uber, right? Craziness. You can make a whole, salary just driving people around all day, not having to clock in to work, not having a boss. Then you have Airbnbs where you're just renting out a part of your parcel to people for a small time frame, and they are, paying you a salary worth of money to do so. So again, we have opportunities also evolving in our economy to appease and promote these gig economy revolution. All right, so we'll go on to, and then we have our peer pressure, right? We have work is hard. We don't like it when we mess up. We don't like when someone's yelling at us. So we have that peer pressure at work, and then we have a peer pressure at home that's saying, if you don't like it, leave, or if you don't like it, do something else. So we do this freelance work, and we become a part of this gig economy. So this gig economy is a complex phenomenon, right, that reflects a range of societal influences from social norms and cultural values to media and advertising. And peer pressure. As we consider our own choices and decisions, it's essential to recognize the ways that society shapes our options and priorities. So here's some ways to make better decisions and avoid these heuristics. So consider opposite perspectives. This might be the most important part of what we do when we are trying to make better decisions. Have diverse perspectives at the table. Let's see, what else can I do? Use decision designs. So like Clarity Metrics Group, we create these designs and we architect these designs for you to make better decisions wholesale. It's not just what the decision maker is doing, it's also what the organization is doing to help make those better decisions. Ask yourself what alternative explanation is for this. This is directly going to affect confirmation biases. Use neutral starting points. Seek out diverse perspectives and opinions. Consider multiple sources of information and use a weighted average. Don't just land on the first thing you see. Use data and evidence-based research for informed decisions, and avoid relying on the first piece of information you see. So now we want to talk about design thinking and system thinking, which is a powerful combination for innovation. I am doing something a little different. Well, I'll start here with the benefits of design thinking and design thinking and system thinking before I go into actually talking about it. So these are 4 reasons that I think design thinking and system thinking should be tied together, because it creates more effective solutions that consider a broader social and environmental implications. And increase scalability and sustainability. And I want to go back to point 1 just really quick and note that in 2025, companies are looking at ESG. They're looking at the environment, they're looking at social, they're looking at governance, they're looking at that this year. So this is going to speak to that. Increased scalability and sustainability, improved collaboration and communication across stakeholders, and enhanced understanding of complex systems and relationships. So that's what putting design thinking and systems thinking together will do. So let's talk about design thinking briefly. So design thinking is a nonlinear, iterative process that teams use to understand users' challenge, assumptions, redefine problems, and create innovative solutions to prototype and test. It is most useful in tackling ill-defined or unknown problems, and it involves 5 phases. So our first phase, empathize with the customer or the end user, define the problem, ideate solutions, create the solution, and release the solution into the environment. Benefits of design thinking is that it's human-centered. If we don't understand our customers, we don't want a business, right? So we need to empathize with our customers. We need to be a human-centric company. We need to have an iterative and a collaborative approach because, again, multiple perspectives, multiple ideas on the table, and its focuses on user needs and experiences. Limitations of design thinking is that it focuses on individual problems, not systems. And it may not consider the broader social environmental implications. Just like I said before, 2025 companies are focused on environment, society, and governments. And also we can lead to solutions. It can lead to solutions that are not scalable or sustainable. And that's absolutely not a good solution if we can't scale it or sustain it. So now we bring in systems thinking. So systems thinking is a holistic approach to problem solving that views issues as part of a larger interconnected system, focusing on understanding the relationships and interactions between different components within the system rather than just analyzing individual parts in isolation. It prioritizes identifying how challenges in one part can impact the whole system through feedback loops. So systems thinking is saying, it's really a phenomenal way to eliminate silos. Because oftentimes when we are at work, we realize that there's group A and group B, and group B is doing something that is affecting group A, but group A doesn't know and group B doesn't know because they are not aware of what they're doing. We're not looking at the systems. We're not looking as a whole. We're not looking at the big picture when we're just looking at pieces and specific problems. We're not seeing the interconnections that could help us in many different ways understand or release that silo mentality, which crushes innovation. Silo mentality is the absolute killer of innovation, creativity, and of course, success. So here are some benefits of systems thinking. We talked about improved decision making because we see the whole, right? We're not just seeing a piece of the whole, we're seeing the exact whole, we're seeing the interconnections, and we have the opportunity then for rapid improvement because we're getting rid of redundancy and we're eliminating silos, we're getting more information. I mean, this is all great things that we can do with systems thinking. But not everything about systems thinking is great. There are also limitations of systems thinking. So we're overlooking a human need, which is something that we do see in design thinking. It's difficult to visualize. So when you're looking at the whole organization, it's hard to create that map, right? It's hard to create those degrees of separation. It's hard to figure out how things are connected, how to leverage those points, and how to have that circular thinking. So it's a little bit complex, which then leads to, of course, there's some time resourcing constraints as well. So those are some limitations, definitely not something we can't overcome though. Now, here is why we want to put design thinking and system thinking together. Design thinking and system thinking are complementary to each other. As we could see, like one does human-centered, one isn't human-centered. Put them together, we become human-centered. And also it provides us with scalable, sustainable solutions. And it does produce innovation because we're now not siloed anymore. We now have a holistic approach. So we're going down here. Design thinking provides human-centered approach to problem solving. Systems thinking provides holistic understanding of complex systems and relations. So together, they enable the creation of innovative, scalable, and sustainable solutions. So here's how we do at Clarity Metrics Group. Here's how we put together design thinking and systems thinking. First, we define the problem. Then we uncover the connections. And then we ideate to a solution. And then after we figure out our solution, we uncover consequences to that solution. So we want to make sure that whatever we're doing is scalable and sustainable. Then we actually do the design. Then we push it off to our customers to do the deployment, but we also include some quality continuous improvement by checking and adjusting. So we have a couple more steps than what you see in systems or design thinking, but put all of this together, this becomes the CMG solution to design. So next we want to talk about data analysis, and we're moving right along with 15 minutes left, so I'm probably going to go a little bit faster here. Pardon me. So one thing you'll notice with me, if you ever work with me, is you'll notice that I do not use the phrase data driven. I absolutely positively dislike that phrase, because when you're looking at the connotation behind that phrase, is you see data as maps, KPIs, big numbers, charts, and things like that. But that's not what we need to make a decision. We need information. So you'll hear me say information driven or informed decisions, because it's information from not just data, but people, process, and data that makes a decision valuable, right? That those three factors add value to any decision that we want to make. So just want to start that off. So you won't hear me say that. You won't hear me say data-driven decisions. You'll hear me talk about information-driven or informed decisions. But there is a place for data, right? There definitely is a place for data. There's a large place for data, which is why it's important to discuss it. So what is data analysis? Data analysis is the process of examining data sets to draw conclusions about information that they contain. The importance of a mature organization, before we go any further, I don't know how to impress the fact that it is so important to have a mature data organization. You have to have the right people in the right place here, because the data that we're getting as decision makers, we have to know that it is quality data. And we as decision makers don't have time to go and run the queries ourselves. We don't have time to go and create the visualizations ourselves. We're waiting for and hoping that our data team will bring us quality information when we're asking for data. So what makes a mature data organization? It's, do you have a data governance framework? Is your organization has a well-defined data governance framework that outlines policies, procedures, standards for data management, security, and quality? Do you have a data management model that includes having data architecture in place, data warehousing, business intelligence capabilities, all of those things? And most importantly, consider yourself about your data security and your compliance. So we've seen this rise in cybersecurity this year, rightfully so. So do you have a cybersecurity team, and are you tracking your compliance with regulatory standards such as GDPR or HIPAA, etc.? So that's a mature data organization, and those mature data organizations are going to capitalize on data trust. You can trust the data that we're pulling out or giving to our decision makers as quality. Therefore, we can enhance our decision making process and increase operational efficiencies. So now, what types of data analysis do we have? I like to call these the 2Ds and the 2Ps. So the 2Ds are the descriptive and diagnostic. Descriptive is summarizing and describing data. Diagnostic is identifying problems and opportunities. Sometimes we stop here, right? We sometimes have to stop here because we don't have the capacity, we don't have the human resource or the financial opportunity to move into the predictive and prescriptive analytics, because they're a little bit more pricey. So we'll see some people, some groups kind of stop at the 2Ds, but it's really important to consider the 2Ps as well, because the 2Ps are where I think you get the most value out of data analysis. So the 2Ps are predictive and prescriptive. Predictive is forecasting future trends and outcomes, and prescriptive is making a recommendation of actions based on data insights. So let's talk about all four categories using examples. So descriptive analytics. So here we have a company called Fashion Forward who wants to understand their sales trends of their online store, and they have collected data on sales, customer demographics, product categories for the past year. Fashion Forward uses descriptive analytics to answer the follow-up question, which is, what are the total online sales for the year? This is a summary statistic, right? So that's how that's one use case for descriptive analytics. Diagnostic analytics. Let's look at this example. So let's say there's a small shop in busy downtown area that's struggling to maintain high customer satisfaction levels. The shop owner's name is Sarah, and she noticed that customers are frequently complaining about long wait times, incorrect orders, and poor coffee quality. So to address these issues, Sarah decided to use diagnostics analytics to identify the root cause of customer dissatisfaction. So Sarah could have used machine learning or statistical modeling to determine the time of day people were complaining, the order and size and complexity, how her staffing correlates with the peak and off-peak hours. So through this analysis, Sarah has realized that she needs new equipment to streamline the brewing process and increase her staffing during peak hours. She might want to dig a little bit deeper. So this goes into the information. Okay, informed decision, not the data, because we need to look at the process, because maybe the process that we're using to store our beans is causing the beans to depreciate faster. So that's another thing that Sarah could also do, but that's outside of the scope of diagnostic analytics. Predictive analytics. So let's say there's a small shoe store, Foot Therapy, who wants to increase sales and improve inventory management. Foot Therapy wants to predict which products will be in high demand and stock up accordingly, therefore reducing out of stocks and overstocking. So let's say that Foot Therapy has a data set of customer transactions, including the product purchases, customer demographics, such as age or location, sales data, total sales, average sale volume or value. And so then they create a new feature. So they do a feature release that will capture relationship between product categories and sales trends. And then they select the appropriate models. So it could be, like I said before, some kind of machine learning or statistical model that they then train, evaluate, and deploy. And once they have this new model in place, they're able to generate predictions for new sales data in real time, thus optimizing inventory and reducing costs. So this is a very, how much can you save when you are not overstocking? That is a great cost driver and awesome, I think, example of how important predictive analytics is. And I want to also note that predictive analytics, it plays a part, it needs descriptive and diagnostic analytics to work. Or predictive, I'm sorry, I jumped ahead, predictive analytics. Now we're going into prescriptive analytics. So prescriptive analytics, let's talk about let's use our example of Sit and Eat restaurant who wants to optimize its menu and pricing to increase to increase sales and customer satisfaction. Using descriptive analytics, the data team analyzed sales data. Using prescriptive analytics, the data team developed a recommendation engine that suggests optimal menu and pricing strategies based on variables related to Sit and Eat historical data elements, such as customer preferences. Once all the variables are input into the engine, it generates recommendations that will optimize sales. So this is one of two recommendations that the new engine has generated. One, offer a discount on salad during afternoon rush hours to attract more customers. 2, increase sandwich offerings during brunch or slump hours to increase average order values. So this is really important when you are trying to launch something, a new product maybe, or launch into a new market. Having prescriptive analytics will prescribe how you can do that. So I often use the analogy of going to the doctor. So when you go to the doctor, you tell them your symptoms. We can call these variables. And the doctor puts all those variables, a good doctor who doesn't have confirmation bias, puts all those variables together to create a prescription or treatment plan for you. And that's exactly what prescriptive analytics does. It creates that treatment plan on how you should solve this issue. So how you should cure your, whatever your diagnosis is. Excuse me. So here are some benefits of using data analysis. We are going to be able to identify trends and patterns. We can measure performance and progress. We have the ability to evaluate effectiveness of initiatives and informing strategic planning and resource allocation. So we're looking at Little's Law, things like that. So that is the end of our webinar for today, and I thank you for attending, and I will go ahead now and put in the chat the link, excuse me, the link to the beta program for the AEM registration. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Otherwise, that concludes our webinar for today. Thank you for joining.